just bought a boat. On this episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning, we'll talk about how to optimize the financial and happiness aspects of owning a boat if you are ready to get on board. Hi, I'm Bridget Sullivan Ramel, and I've got a fee only financial planning practice.
Hey, and I'm John Shear. I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Madison, Wisconsin. And before we get going on things, I want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button. When you subscribe, it helps other people find our show and it helps us rise in the rankings on things. And I did, before we get started, Bridget, I didn't want to let it go that, on board, those puns that you had, those were outstanding, right? I didn't want to let that slip by. And I was also thinking, as you're doing the introduction, you're going to talk about the ideas on financing and decision-making. We should have done that before I bought a boat, not after. Thanks a lot for the help.
Yeah, not a good, bad idea. Okay, so let's talk about financing first. So tell me how you approach it. Well, it seems like you might have just walked into the boat dealership and put your money down. You didn't really, did you think about this ahead of time?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that question up. So I'm gonna go back a few years. So we had the old boat that we had for 18 years. So it was a long stretch, and it was old when we bought it. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe 10 years or so ago, I was at the boat dealership getting my boat worked on. And, you sort of walk around the showroom, right? And you're looking at, oh, well, that's kind of nice, and I remember they had the sticker on it and whatever the price tag was. And it was, monthly payment, the price was real small, right? But then the monthly payment big, and I don't even remember the number, 300 or whatever the number was a month. And I caught myself in my head saying, I can afford, X $100 a month. Yeah, I could. And okay, I don't need a new boat, right? But it's interesting, that thought process and how the salesmanship gets done, right? And just having that realization of, oh, what's my monthly payment? And if, for people, you would go out and buy a car, well, how much can you afford per month? And no, we want to think about the price, right? You're going to pay this dollar out the door, regardless of whether you pay it in one lump sum or you pay more over time. Right.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the reasons why I actually like not financing something like a boat, because if you actually are paying out whatever the price of the boat is, and boating prices vary substantially. If you're actually paying out that 10,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever you're buying the boat for, then you can accurately compare it to the other things in your life. So you can say, okay, for $50,000, I could also redo both my kitchen and my bathrooms, or, and that's fine if you decide to go buy both. But
$300 a month or $500 a month compared to redoing my kitchen, those things don't correlate, right? But when you put it in those numbers, that helps you make a smart decision. That's exactly right. So. And so, to answer your question, directly, no, we didn't finance the boat. So I didn't look at where the interest rates were and those sort of things. Our boat, our old boat was 30 years old. And so it was a matter of time if we wanted to keep having a boat that we were going to have to do something at some point. And we were able to find a good deal now. So we'd saved up and had cash to be able to buy a boat with. And it's interesting as you think about this decision. For us, we've got a place on a lake and we live in Madison, very close to the lake. So for us, it's a weekly, weekly usage. It's not once a year. It's not 1 week a year. It's like, no, it's a big part of our summer life around here in Wisconsin. So for those reasons, as opposed to other things where, it's hard to justify, really. Like, geez, you're spending a lot of money and buying this thing, and it's not like I'm driving it to work every day, right? It's nothing that we need. But there is some value in it for us as some of the memories we can make with our kids and our friends and those sorts of things. So from that perspective, and I love how you put it into, hey, we could redo the kitchen, we could do these other big ticket things. That is sort of the decision-making process we went through without frankly being articulate or intentional about it. But hey, is this worth the investment? And I say investment in a sense of not from a financial investment. Right? We're not going to get money out of this thing, but are we going to get a return on it? For us, it was a return that is not measured in money, but in lifestyle and happiness and enjoyment. That was a good trade-off for us. Not in so.
And we'll talk more about the happiness factors later. I do want to mention that if you do finance boat, which again, we're not recommending, actually, I think it's a good, one of the things that you said that I really liked was that basically you saved up for it. It wasn't necessarily I had your boat bucket, but when you looked at it before, like, how much am I going to spend in a month, caught your eye. But now it's like, okay, I have the money, let me just buy it. And then
Right.
the other thing I like to mention to people is that there's such a thing as debt drag, which is that feeling of like, oh, I have this loan out there. And that actually reduces the happiness of an item. So you're going to enjoy it more if you don't have a loan. But if you do get a loan, and you do itemize on your taxes, you can take, and the boat has a toilet, a stove, or some way to cook some food,
Yep.
and bed. You can actually, and the loan is secured by the boat. You can actually deduct it like a second home. So
Yes.
if you don't have a second home already, so if you have this boat with your second home, then presumably you're deducting your interest already. So it can't be your third or fourth interest deduction. It has to be your second. But I
Right.
just wanted to put that out there because I've had clients deduct their boat interests. So I just want to, that's another factor to consider, and it's not nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, and that to me is one of those great things just to keep in mind, right? Especially in some of the bigger lakes, you've got the sailboat, some other things that it's not a throwaway to go like, oh, maybe I should think about, could I deduct this interest if I've taken a loan on it? That's awesome.
Yeah, you should make sure you do it. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
to have that in a big factor in your decision making, but if you're going to get a loan and you meet the qualifications, you might as well deduct the interest. Okay,
That's right.
so let's get back into the figuring out how to optimize the happiness for this. And I think that first of all, research indicates that water makes people happy. Being around water, hearing water, and the color blue all make people feel good. And so I think for a lot of people, water is their happy space. And I think the boating industry would like to hop on board with that.
Yeah.
And say, oh yeah, this is your access to the water. But I know for me personally, the buying a boat kind of puzzles me because I'm not against boats, but I'm not particularly into boats. It's not my happy space. And to me, it seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's funny as you bring up the happiness factor, and for some of the reasons I'll articulate, we didn't really think about that, but there's a famous saying in people that are on the water that the happiest day is when you buy your boat, and the second happiest day is when you sell it, right? Getting rid of all the headaches, sort of a thing. And those sorts of things, because it's work and there's maintenance and there's a lot of hassle factor that people don't think about before they own a boat. And for us, it's really interesting. We've got some good friends, and they're what I would call boaters. They like to go out and just be on the boat. And for us, it's more utilitarian. And it's like, we like to fish and we like to ski and tube, and and so it's a tool for us to do these things that are really useful for us, more so, at least as I think about it in terms of some of this research that you've done on things about it's not just about being on the water, it's about these other things we can do on the water.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe the takeaway from that is just that it's really like, maybe be more intentional about thinking about why you want this, what's the benefit for you, and just knowing, and then you can make a really good decision about whether it's worth that allocation of money for things.
Yeah, and I think the dark side of this might be worth mentioning too, is that if I think that the social comparison with boats, anytime you're in a situation where there's a lot of people with more money, you think that's going to be happier situation, but the internal social comparisons that go on there can be tough. So you're on your boat and you're not seeing all the people without boats. And so you're just thinking about the next boat over that is nicer than your boat. And you're thinking, wow, that person's nice, it's got a nicer boat. And then you go into a lot of social comparison thoughts of like, my boat is less than their boat. And some people avoid this thinking, and you might be one of those, John, but I think I just want to mention that if you need to try to avoid thinking that way around boating, because there's always going to be somebody with a better boat.
Yeah. It reminds me of when we've got a client that's moving into a larger home in some fashion, more expensive, and you think about what's the mortgage or the taxes, but then you forget about that. So, right, when you're moving to a different place, now maybe, you know, everybody else has the same level of spend or a bigger level, and they take better vacations and they drive other cars, and you start that keeping up with the Joneses mentality happens when you're buying a house, I think. And exactly on point with a similar thing on the boat, you start to notice all the other fancy things that you want, and it can be a cycle of things. It's interesting as you say that. I sort of fall on the other side of it. I think, like, I liked our old boat. We didn't have to worry about if it banged into the dock or if we spilled minnows in it or whatever. Now I got to be careful because we got one that's a lot newer and it's a lot cleaner and a lot nicer. And so it's a different level. I am not as much, at least from the boat standpoint, not to keep up with the Joneses thing, but it can be a cycle. And I think one of the things about that is it's not intentional, right? I say that to you as we're talking here, and then I got to check myself and think like, oh, you know, is that really where I am on things? Or do I start to have that sort of, whatever it is, comparison, envy, whatever the term is for it, kind of can creep in, I think, on things as you start to, you know, it's never enough type of a mentality. And so I think the other thing about it is it's not always right in front of you going, oh yeah, here it is, but it sort of sneaks up on you, and being aware of it and being mindful. So I really appreciate this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that people might not cop to it, and I cop to it, that's, and it's something that I'd really desperately like to get over. But oh, this person's got this better thing, and that makes me worse. I mean, it doesn't make you happy, that's for sure. And it does make you grateful. Or even the downside comparison, if somebody's boat is worse than mine, thinking that way doesn't make me happy either.
Right.
So that's not a happy space, you know. And I hope you don't spill minnows in the new boat.
I'll report back. We'll see. We're going up for a week on vacation soon.
So it seems like if we look at this, two things I'd like to wrap up with are that optimizing your experiences on the boat, because that's what you're talking about. The boat is a vehicle for family experiences. That's what you're saying. It's like a fun family experiences. And then there's other social aspects too. There's other boating people, which you find, you know, that it's like a different kind of boating culture is kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'll just wanted to clarify this. It's like for me, the boat is a tool for other things. There's other people where the boat is the thing, right? They dig that, kind of like somebody who's into, you know, muscle cars or different sorts of things. But it's so it can be that way, but no, like that self-awareness and sort of being intentional about it is a word we use a lot in our practice, and just being intentional about what are you trying to get out of it. Because I tell you, once you start thinking, oh geez, maybe we should look for something, you start to it's easy to lose sight of what your goal is, right? The goal is to get you something that you're looking for. And that's what maybe a little takeoff, a corollary of that is be intentional about your thinking about it if you're going to buy a boat.
Well, and then you might end up thinking like, okay, it's too much work. I'm just going to buy shares of a boat, or I'll just make friends with other boat owners, or I'll just go hang out at the boat and play, you know, like, so I think that's there are other options besides just you buying a boat. Like, but then again, some people, like, the ownership is nice, but there's ways around it of sharing the load, and again, engaging socially too with people. At least here in Chicago, there's a whole boating culture where people share boats and people rent boats that they take care of, and you just show up and use it. So there's other options too besides just owning a boat.
That's absolutely right. Well, with that, I think it's a great way to wrap things up. Thanks for a great conversation, Bridget. And as a reminder to viewers, Bridget and I are both members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, nationwide group of holistic fee-only planners that are tax-focused. If you like what you hear on Friends Talk Financial Planning, check out acplanners.org.
And please subscribe. See you next time.